I think I'll give everybody just another minute or so for folks to join us. I see everybody joining, which is great. We're going to be recording this so it can serve as a reference for us, for proposers. It'll be on the submission webpage on the Greater and Greener website. We'll record the video and we'll also have the slides as well. And folks can enter questions that you have along the way or at the end by just clicking the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen and answer questions. And Camille and I will work our way through them after we present, which probably take less than 20 minutes, maybe 15. And we also may answer any of them along the way while the other one is talking. But thanks so much for joining us to learn more about the proposal process. We're at the very beginning of the window. I'm also going to send out in the webinar chat. Hopefully everyone got this. It's a link on the Greater and Greener website to the submission page, which also includes a link to the actual submission page in the CVent website, but it has lots of other information. And that's where this webinar will live after we finish it, probably by tomorrow. All right, so with that, we'll get things started, Canley. There we go. All right. So welcome to Greater and Greener 2026 submission process. The portal just opened last week. But for those of you who don't know much about Greater and Greener, although I recognize many names already amongst the attendees, this is the biennial Urban Parks Conference that we put on at City Parks Alliance. This will be Austin in 2026 will be our 7th conference. And the audience is really folks who work in parks departments and other government agencies, lots and lots of parks nonprofits of all shapes and sizes. We have private sector folks like consultants in landscape architecture and urban planning, and even some playground equipment manufacturers, and community members and community-based organizations and friends of groups who are all interested and utilize the power of parks to create more sustainable, vibrant, and equitable cities. The conference itself, if any of you have not been there, is a really fun mix of inside and outside sessions and experiences. So the outside experiences are our weekend tours and our mobile workshops. And those are not typically part of this submission process, although sometimes we get a really great locally based proposal and we reach out to the folks and say, hey, would you be up for maybe turning this into a mobile workshop? But the submission process is really for our educational sessions, which are the indoor learning sessions, which I'll talk to you about the different varieties of in a moment. And we had over 1,200 people come to the last conference in Seattle. We actually had to turn away about 100 on the wait list because we just didn't have space for them. So we were hoping to have an even bigger audience in Austin, but we'll see what happens with the economy and people's budgets. But you can find out more about the conference generally on the greatergreener.org website. And this is a direct link to the page in CVent where you could submit your abstracts. But the link that I put into the webinar chat has more information as well as that link, which is very difficult to memorize. All right, Kathleen, let's go to our next page. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the two different kinds of formats. We've tried to simplify the conference a bit this year, and we're only going to have two different types of sessions. So there are panels, which everyone probably knows what a panel is. Been to many of them on webinars and in conferences. But the panel format is a moderator and 2 to 3 speakers. So depending on the number of speakers, each presenter gets about 15 to 20 minutes to present. And then this is something that'll be a little bit different at Greater and Greener in 2026. We're going to break up the room and have 20 to 25 minutes of interactive discussion where audience members can follow those 2 to 3 speakers to a corner of the room and actually have interpersonal discussion and Q&A with them for the last third or so of the session. The sessions are about 75, are all 75 minutes in total time. So that is a format that combines, if any of you have been to Greater and Greener in the past, our innovation round format where we always broke up the room and our panels in an effort to make the panels a little bit more interactive and a little bit more fun. Get out of your seat and go to a corner of the room, follow the speaker who you're most interested in asking follow-up questions to, and have this conversation. The speakers usually sit in a director's type bar stool up a little bit higher so they can be comfortable and see everyone who's asking questions. So that's the panel format. The peer conversation format, these are very different than panels. There's no AV at all. They're limited to a much smaller group. Panels can have 150 people, more if the room is bigger in the audience. But peer conversations are set up as round tables, and we have 35 to 45 registrants. So they're space constrained. And the proposers for these serve as a discussion leader. And in fact, if they'd like, they can recruit up to 3 kind of co-facilitators to join them and help if they wanted to have some smaller group discussion as part of their 75-minute breakup of the time. And peer conversations are really focused on sharing ideas, challenges, perspectives, and advice. So these are less formal, no AV. It's a chance for a speaker to introduce an idea, share some learnings or questions that they have in about 10, 15 minutes or so to introduce it, and then open it up either to group discussion or small table discussion and bring everyone back together again. They've proved really, really popular, and we have them throughout the conference. All right, next slide, Kamli. The tracks for the conference serve as really broad themes, and they really help us organize all of the programming. And that allows us to kind of also give you guys a means of submitting where you want the where you think your proposal kind of fits best from a subject matter perspective. So our 4 big tracks or themes for this conference are parks as resilient infrastructure, sustainable park funding in turbulent times, parks and equitable community development, and parks' roles in healthy and inclusive communities. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of these. There'll be a link on the proposal site in CVent where you can get much longer, not only descriptions of these, but we even went through and created a bulleted list of examples of kind of the kinds of things we'd love to hear from you all about. But by no means should you take that as a prescriptive list. Anything you can think of from your own work at interest that really fits under these categories, you should feel free to submit. Don't let our lack of imagination, limit your own thinking. But I'm guessing there may be some more questions in the Q&A that I can get into some more of those details, but they'll all be in black and white for you to kind of read through and think about. All right, next slide, Kamli. I'll talk a little bit about each one of these. So parks as resilient infrastructure. And this track, we're really interested in cities, parks and recreation facilities serving as critical physical and civic infrastructure. So some examples of what we mean by this. The roles of parks and parks departments are growing more essential as we face increasing threats from extreme weather events and intensifying seasonal conditions. Parks and Rec staff are increasingly asked to serve as first responders in a lot of cases, and using their facilities to provide shelter and comfort and recovery resources during times of crisis and emergencies. And then parks are also key assets to help cities become more resilient in the face of a changing climate. So there's a lot to unpack in this track theme, but this is sort of a very high level overview. All right, next one. Sustainable park funding in turbulent times. This, as we know from our surveys and our programming, funding is usually like the #1 issue that our members want to hear about. And the challenges to the mix of resources that to more sustainably and equitably fund development, maintenance, operations, and programming of park systems are being challenged in a lot of ways right now. So there's changes in federal funding and policy priorities. And this could be there's also partially as a result of that, some potentially disruptive macroeconomic trends. So this combination of changes to federal funding and what's going on in the broader economy may pose big impacts to cities' budgets. And as we all know from previous tough fiscal times, there's usually a disproportionate effect on urban parks and recreation funding. So as federal support maybe be waning for urban infrastructure of all kinds, along with defunding equity policy goals like environmental justice, which was a big um, topic during one of our keynote addresses at the last Greater and Greener. There may also be impacts to park funding from the private sector, from private sector partners in the corporate world, as well as philanthropy, as they adjust to what's happening in the economy and in federal funding. So these changes and this uncertainty threatens to upend the status quo, which is a challenging situation for parks departments and their partners. But it may also create some opportunities to rethink, redefine, recalibrate the relationships and roles between sectors in supporting urban parks, and maybe more strategically align each with their respective strengths and weaknesses. So we're also interested in how can upending the current funding dynamic perhaps bring some changes that might be beneficial. Next slide, Ken. All right, so let's get into parks and equitable community development. Parks, as you guys know, are part of place-based community development strategies, and they're big destinations, depending on their size and roles, that generate activity, human activity. And so many have untapped potential for local economic development. And as we're facing a future, near-term future of maybe less funding and more economic uncertainty, that local economic development piece seems to be increasingly important to parks leaders. So we're interested in how parks and rec agencies are working with community and neighborhood associations, other public agencies, elected officials and policymakers, and other partners, maybe in the advocacy world, to create strategies for inclusive growth with parks at the center, and how they are embraced in broader policy efforts to ensure that the benefits of new investment accrue to existing neighborhood residents and can address the concerns that people have about displacement, or the term that some folks use for it, green gentrification. All right, next slide, Camley. And finally, our fourth track is about parks' roles in healthy and inclusive communities. There's a lot of topics that kind of fit into this, but what we mean by this is that communities need parks and rec spaces to promote physical and emotional health, support overall well-being, social cohesion, and provide opportunities for play to support the development of children and families. But we know that parks and rec are not adequately recognized and supported as part of our health system in most communities. So we're really interested in how parks and recreation agencies work with and listen to and respond to communities as partners in the roles that they play in community health and inclusion. And again, happy during the Q&A to talk more about all of these. And there's the link that is on the CVent page for submissions. Will have much deeper descriptions and examples. All right, next slide, Camley. All right, so let me just talk a little bit about process, and Camley's going to actually walk you guys through how it works with some screenshots from the CVent page. So hopefully that'll alleviate any anxiety people have about logging in and doing it in real time. But the process begins by creating a new account in CVent. So even if you've done this before, even if you're, and this is not your CPA membership account, this is an account that you need to create in CVent to submit for the conference. So keep in mind the person that's creating this account will serve as the main point of contact for this submission. And we're going to limit the number of submissions per each account to just 3. So if you submit more than 3, just be warned that we may not look at any of the ones beyond the first 3 that we see, because they're all date and time stamped. If you propose additional speakers, okay, so you're sending this one submission, and let's say you want to pitch a panel idea and you have some people in mind that would speak with you. Or you have some ideas if you want to submit a peer conversation. You say, I have a couple of friends or colleagues or peers that I'd like to include as co-facilitators. Maybe we'll do the small table breakouts and have them help facilitate the conversation. The submitter, in either case, will serve as the primary speaker and our main point of contact. And we'll work with you if you get selected to confirm those other people. So one proposal for each session, regardless of how many speakers you may want to include in that session. And we certainly encourage people to submit just on their own behalf. Just you have an idea, you have a case study, something you want to share from your work or your experience, you should submit that on your own. You don't have to by any means, submit a whole panel of speakers. The portal's going to close after we get 300 proposals, or August 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern, whichever comes first. And we'll be updating folks via email if we're getting, we're getting close to 300, just to let people know. But because of that, we definitely would encourage you to submit on the earlier side. And that's also why we don't want to see more than 3 submissions per proposal. All right. Next slide, Camly. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the review process to help people kind of get a window into how that works. Just a reminder, as always, members are given priority. And if you're not sure if you're a member, or you don't know how to access your membership number, where you want to join, there's all links to all of that info on the Submit a Session proposal page on the Greater and Greener website, as well as in the instructions in CVent too. So you can see all that info and check and make sure. But proposals from members are given priority. Staff here and volunteer subject matter experts who we recruit will be reviewing the proposals within each track. And the criteria that we use to review them include the qualifications of the speaker proposer, how well aligned they are with the conference track, and how relevant it is to the broader field of practice. And then we also really seek to balance the proposals that we accept between the tracks, between the formats, peer conversation and panels, between the topics that they want to address, and speaker diversity of all kinds. We're looking for different perspectives. We're looking for different geographies, different types of cities and communities. So we have an incredible diversity of viewpoints and speakers at the conference. All right, next slide, Camly. We might ask if you would be comfortable changing the format of your proposal to better suit maybe an openings that we have. So if you submitted a peer conversation and we have a need for a panelist on the same topic, and we might come to you and say, hey, we know you wanted to lead a discussion, but we really have an opening for a panelist on this topic, and ask you, would you be up for doing it? And vice versa, perhaps too. So that would be your choice. But in order to kind of accommodate as many speakers as possible, we might ask some folks if they'd be comfortable switching from one to the other, but we wouldn't do it without your permission. There just might not be space to get it in the way you submitted otherwise. So we will let folks know if that's an opportunity. And again, if you're submitting it solely on your own behalf, we might look to place you in a panel if you're proposing a panel topic with other speakers on the same topic. So you could all be on a panel together. If you are proposing a topic on for a peer conversation and someone else has a very similar topic, we might check and see, hey, would you guys be interested perhaps, or be open to being co-facilitators together, because you both had this very similar idea and you have very complementary perspectives. That could be great. So we'll check in with people about that. And again, if you are submitting on behalf of a group of speakers or facilitators, if the reviewers accept your proposal idea, we will then work directly with you to confirm who the other speakers would be and get all of their information. So we don't want to see multiple proposals for the same session. All speakers who plan to attend must pay to register for the conference. Now, the speaker rate is an incredible discount. The rates are not public yet. They haven't been published yet. They're going to be very similar, a little bit higher than last time around in Seattle. But the speaker discount is the biggest one that we offer. It certainly makes the conference more affordable. It's in recognition of the fact that the speakers are the engine of the conference. And, there are also some scholarships that folks get from local funders, which obviate the need for them to register at the speaker rate. They come in as part of a scholarship. But just keep in mind, this is why we don't want to see lots of proposals from the same session. Everyone who attends has to be registered and has to pay to register. Now, the one exception to that, besides being on scholarship, is that you can come speak and attend your own session without having to pay, but then you wouldn't be able to attend any other sessions at the conference. So very, very few folks do that, but it is something that some local speakers, it makes sense for them to just come and do their own session. All right, next slide. All right, so now Camly is just going to walk you through some screenshots of what it looks like on the CVent page, so you can get a picture in your head of how it looks before actually giving it a shot, and kind of talk you through it, and then we'll do Q&A.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cam Lee with City Parks Alliance. And again, just showing you screenshots of the actual forms that you can be familiar before you submit. Like Gideon said, you will need to make a account for this submission process, even if you have answered the call for speaker submissions in past years. The person who is making the account will serve as the main point of contact. Although you can also submit on the behalf of someone else, just know that information from us will flow through you, the account holder. In step two, you're going to enter the speaker details. If you, again, are thinking of bringing additional panel speakers or co-facilitators for the peer conversations, that will come in a later step. We just need the main proposal speaker, and that will be the main point of contact. So your name, first name, last name, professional credentials, optional, job title, and organization. Here you will enter your City Parks Alliance membership information. You can find that by logging into your City Parks Alliance website. If you can't remember your password, you can reset it. Or if you have further questions, you can email membership@cityparksalliance.org. There are lots of benefits to being a member of City Parks Alliance, so we invite you to consider membership. You get discounts on conference registration, and we have virtual programming all year round and more. And as Gideon noted, members who submit to this call for speakers will get additional consideration. And if you are not a member, you will just type NA into all these fields below. Here we are just two questions, demographic questions about race or ethnicity and gender. And then this is where you'll submit the speaker biography. Just to note that there is a character limit, so keep that in mind as you're writing it up, and also have your headshot ready to upload as well. In step three, you're entering the details of your submission. So you will have your presentation title and also choose which session format you would like to submit for. So either panels or peer conversations. These are the written details that Gideon went over as well. And the track that your submission falls under. There's a hyperlink, the review full descriptions of conference tracks here, that if you click, will be a full document with descriptions of each track as well as questions that can help form your submission. You will also submit a presentation overview. Note that it's 3,000 characters maximum, and also 3 learning objectives. If you never put together learning objectives, we also have sample ones there that are hyperlinked as well. This is optional, but if you would like to show any more case studies or background information that can support your submission, you can enter up to 3 links that reviewers will also see. This is the section where you would input information on additional speakers that you would want to include in your panel or peer conversation. We'd need their basic info, such as name, title, organizational affiliation, and qualifications, and also a small blurb or line about what they would contribute to the session. There's also a character limit here as well to note. If your proposal is selected, you will be in charge of confirming this full lineup. So just keep that in mind as the main point of contact. Again, a small note here that the person who is submitting this form, as well as the folks in the lineup, must pay for the conference, but you will do so at a reduced speaker rate. In step 4, you get to review your submission one last time, and then you'll go ahead and submit. Just know that you can also edit your submission before the deadline in August or before we close the portal. And here are just final reminders that the portal will close August 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern, or if 300 proposals are received before the deadline. So we encourage you to be thoughtful about submitting early. And all proposers will be notified by the end of the year. If you have more specific questions, you can email us at programs@greatergreener.org, and we are also taking questions right now.
Thanks, Camly. Yeah, and one came in from Stacy, which Stacy, you still may want to just email us at programs@greatergreener.org. But I do want to address the topic because it's one that is always incredibly important and incredibly popular. And there could be a lot of different fits for it. And that's Stacy is asking about what format might be best for a session on community engagement. And I think she had some specific things in mind, maybe as a panel or not. And so I'll just say we've had, as I was mentioning, right, as you guys know, there's no limit on what we can learn from each other about how to do it better and innovations in there. And this is a really important topic to us, Stacy, and others. And every Greater and Greener, we have multiple sessions on it, whether they are peer conversations or panels. I would say if you just have your own story to share, maybe from where you work or a project you worked on, then submit it, as a panel idea, and give us the summary and the description of it. And I can guarantee there's going to be others who are going to want to share other stories. And so I do think a panel is a great way to share some of that. However, peer conversations can also be a more interactive way. So to talk about anything, but particularly engagement, uh, it might be an interesting topic to try a peer conversation on if you have a lot of questions, for example, that you might want to discuss with a smaller group based on maybe a specific, engagement experience that you had at your work. And maybe you have some second guessing, or maybe you have some ideas that you want to bounce off of people, or maybe you're even in the midst of a project right now and you'd love to maybe use some peers, and the timing could be good as an opportunity to debrief or to prospectively think about some creative things. So I think in that case, it could be a fun way to discuss an engagement story, talk about the project, talk about either the approach or the experience you have. And then you've got a room of 35 or 40 peers who are interested in this topic and probably have some similar experiences that want to share. So hopefully, Stacey, that helps a little bit, but you should feel free to email us as well with the specifics, and we can give you any opinions or thoughts that we have about the best fit. And then our friend Anna, who's been a presenter before, asks, this is a good question. I don't know if I have a great answer, but is it more likely to be selected if a whole panel is included? I mean, this is a little bit of a numbers game, I guess, which is that we only have so many slots for panels. So I think it makes it it's more competitive if you're going to submit a whole panel, because you're all the submissions that are entire panels are going to potentially gobble up an entire panel slot, right? So if you're submitting on your own behalf, then you're sort of a free agent in the mix. And if the reviewers really like the story and it's a popular topic, there's going to be others that we could plug you into, either pair you guys together, or maybe there's another panel that has room for another person. So I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule here, Anna, about what's more likely to be selected, but I do think it can be harder to get an entire panel picked. And that's also where in the past there's been a little bit more heartburn, I think, amongst proposers who have a group of people and the reviewers say, we love this topic, but geez, these are all consultants, or geez, these are all colleagues at one city. And we'd love to do a panel on this topic, but bring in maybe a couple of different sectors' perspectives, or a community perspective, or another city's perspective. So if you're going to submit a panel, the advice I would give you is try to make it as diverse as possible in terms of the speaker's perspective. So uh, try to bring in partners from other sectors, maybe, who worked on this project with you to be a panel. So you could have a community voice, you could have a nonprofit voice, you could have a public sector voice, you could have a consultant voice. Or maybe if you're a consultant, try to bring in some clients from multiple places, right, who could help share the story on the broader theme of the work. So hopefully that helps give a little bit of guidance about how to make a panel submission more competitive. All right, let's see if anyone else has anything else to add to the Q&A box. We'll give folks another minute or so. And I should say too, you can email us at programs@greatergreen.org with any questions that you have. And Camly and I also are happy to set up a short Zoom meeting with folks. You can invite multiple people too, and talk you through kind of where we think the fit could be, or how to increase your odds, to help you kind of strategize. It's something we've never done a webinar, info webinar for Greater Greener before. We've never had a video of it up on the site before, and we've never kind of advertised these kinds of office hours that we'd like to offer for advice for people too. So we're hoping that all of those opportunities will make it a little bit more clear and a little bit more easy for folks to submit successful proposals. All right, Camly, anything else you can think of to add?
No, well, this video and the slides will be up on the submission page. So if you want to send it to a colleague or peer, you can do so as well.
All right, and Anna asked a really great clarifying question about a speaker's qualifications. If you don't have a lot of experience, does that make you less qualified? I would say no. I think experience is great. Experience is always a good qualification, but perspective and role, Anna, and where your voice is coming from in the story are just as, if not more important. So you could be new to the industry. You could be outside the industry, right? You could be a community member. You could, it's really your, how the speaker, the qualification really comes to what is the role, and what kind of story does your voice kind of represent in the proposal idea. And again, knowing that we love, because of who we are, we love the hearing from a diversity of roles in the work that you all do. So whether it's public sector, private sector, um, whether it's community voice, those are all incredibly important qualifications for the speaker. So yeah, so we're looking to get the doers, and we're really interested in the role and the perspective that they have in the proposal ideas. And it doesn't mean that just because you've been in the field for 30 years, you automatically are rated higher. And it doesn't mean that you might just be a new practitioner, or you might be a volunteer or a stakeholder. And that does not mean that you are poorly qualified. It means you're incredibly well qualified, pending the way you fit into the story that the proposal wants to share. All right. All right. So again, email us if you have questions, and we're always happy to do a virtual meeting to help talk it through with people. And we're so glad you guys came. We're so glad for your interest. You guys are the conference, as far as I'm concerned. It's a challenge for us to winnow down the incredible number of great, amazing ideas that we have, but it's really what makes Greater and Greener so special and so valuable for the attendees, and having these different formats as well. Having your typical kind of educational session that's a panel, but having the way more interactive and informal, more off the record opportunities to really converse with peers about the work that you do in a peer conversation as well. So great diversity of formats for you guys to think about a good fit, and think about where you would be most comfortable as a speaker or as a facilitator as well. So thanks so much for joining us. And with that, I think we'll end the webinar, and hopefully by tomorrow, we'll be able to share it on our website.
Thanks, everyone.